2025. I had to make sure I said that right. At 5:30 p.m. If I can get everybody to rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Face the flag. I will start us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Yeah, we don't do the Texas one. I don't understand why we don't when the city council does, but I don't know the Texas pledge because it wasn't something we said in school when I was in school. So yeah, it's probably better that I don't have to lead it.
I'd be in trouble.
All right, we were going to do our roll call. We have Greg Clanton.
Present.
Pam Streeter here. Megan.
Here. Present.
Tony James. Where are we calling you?
Tony's fine.
Okay. And Rex Miller.
Here.
So we have a quorum of 5-0. We also have Stephen Boyd
There we go.
and Jody. All right. So we have our consent agenda. It is approving the minutes from the November 20th and December 18th meetings. I know you two were not present for those meetings, so you are allowed to abstain from those votes. Have you guys read through?
Yep.
Everybody good?
Yep.
Anything need to change? All right, can I get a motion?
I move.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
3. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining?
Same.
Same.
Thank you. All right. We would normally, because this is the first meeting of the new commission, have the nomination and vote for chair and vice chair, but we forgot to get that on the agenda item. So, oops. So, with your permission, I will continue to chair the meeting tonight, and next month, we will make those decisions.
Sounds good.
And I know where it's gonna land again, but yeah,
That direction.
we have to officially do things.
It's coming back and you.
I can't.
Yeah, I will
City.
continue on as chair. We need to pick a vice chair. If you guys don't want me as chair, that's a different story, but I'm willing to take that role. I will now open the public hearings at 5:33. I'd like to take the opportunity to remind everybody that this portion of the meeting is strictly for public comments only, no Q&A. Anyone wishing to speak during this time is asked to give their name and address, and we'll have 3 minutes to make statements or comments after each item has been announced. If you have an opportunity, you will have an opportunity to pose questions during the discussion and consideration portion of the meeting. I don't see TVs on, so are we streaming or not streaming?
No, we're streaming.
We're streaming? Okay, anybody online?
4 viewers, no comments.
Okay. All right. So public hearing number 1 is a public hearing regarding the boundaries for amending the ordinance 14.02-6, the downtown district overlay requirements and boundaries. Any public comments? Okay. Item number 2, public hearing regarding recommendations for amending ordinance, or actually creating ordinance 14.02.7, which is the Paluxy River Housing District overlay requirements and boundaries. Anybody have any public comments? Anybody online? Okay. Item number 3, public hearing regarding recommendations for ordinance, for creating ordinance 14.02-8, the Wolf City Housing District overlay requirement and boundaries. And Item number 4, public hearing regarding recommendations for creating ordinance 14.02-9 US Highway Corridor Overlay Requirements and Boundaries. Item number 5, public hearing regarding recommendations for amending the Schedule of Uses, Chapter 14, Appendix 3, Alcohol Sales, Part 5, Educational and Institutional Uses, and Part 8, Residential. At this time, I am now closing the public hearings at 5:35. Okay, here's where we get to have lots of fun. So, to catch you guys up to speed, state law over the years has removed a lot of municipalities' ability to regulate in base zoning areas. So we're basically, we can say you can, if your land is zoned this, here's the things that you can do in that land, but we're not allowed to tell them anything else. What has been started to be developed over the last 10 years is what they actually call overlay districts, so that it will sit above multiple zoning areas. So that when you are creating an overlay district, you're saying the underlying zone, whether it's a residential zone, a commercial, a restricted commercial, that all still matters. The setbacks matter, the everything else matters. But that we can create a boundary that sits over and above it that says within this, we have special rules. These overlay districts are being used in Houston and Waco and Austin and Waxahachie and Granbury, small towns, large cities alike. And what it's doing is it's letting us be a little bit more thoughtful about what we want those particular areas, regardless of whether it's a commercial, a residential area, to look like. It allows for better control of placement of development. It allows us the ability to kind of say, we want these things here, but we really don't want them over here. So using the favorite example right now, B2 is all the way up and down 67, but it also was zoned down Bernard Street. And because of that, a alcoholic establishment was allowed because we had no ability to stop it. So by putting these zones in place, it gives us a little bit more authority to say, hey, look, you may be B2, or you may be residential, or you may be, something else. But in this particular part of that zoning, we want more thought behind it. Does that make sense? So that's what we are attempting to do. It was actually recommended in our comprehensive plan. And we had multiple discussions about it over the last couple of meetings that we had. And so we actually started with a downtown district zone, but we hadn't put any of the regulations behind it. We just kind of created the boundary for it. What we actually have to do today is we've rethought the boundary needs. And we've rethought again, so I want to talk about both things. The boundary that we currently put in play is basically from Hereford up to Vernon. No, one past. Hollywood. What am I getting? No, Cedar. Not Cedar. What is the heck the street? Vine. Can't remember my streets. It goes from Hereford to Vine. It cuts in, goes back behind the yellow house and what is Whiskey Woods and their staging and all of that, comes back around, goes behind the police station, cuts back, kind of follows the property lines up to Jackson, all the way over to Live Oak, and then it cuts straight down Live Oak across all the property lines so that it kind of recaptures Storybrook Cafe and then goes down to the river and then follows the riverbank back over to Hereford. That was the initial thought process because we were looking at more of the commercial district and we weren't thinking about the residential area per se. However, when we've rethought it in conversations with some of the city council and city administrator, going ahead and passing Hereford and picking up the senior living apartments and Bernard's Mill and the Old Rivercrest land, and just kind of following. So instead of turning back up Hereford, going all the way down the riverbank to the end of Rivercrest, coming back up along Bernard Street and just the one side of Bernard, the river side of Bernard, back up to Hereford is the new expansion idea. And because of that, the idea of that is because we want to make sure that as we look at Rivercrest and what could be done there, that we are putting that into this downtown district because it's going to be a part of the development of what is this historic downtown area. But not just historic zones, it's the heart of the community. And so that was the thought of going ahead and expanding the district line a little bit more than we initially had voted on.
Okay.
Does that make sense to everybody?
It does.
Questions? Okay. In a topic that came up with somebody else entirely, they asked why we didn't actually take it all the way down and instead of just stopping at Storybrook, but going all the way down and picking up the fire station, Lily House, etc., and covering that whole area, which is kind of the entry into our downtown area. And I didn't have that drawn out on the map or boundaried, but I wanted to have that discussion of, does that make sense? So that everything that's kind of what we want to consider the heart of the community, starting at, well, you've got the Lily House, you've got the fire station, you've got the community center, you've got the houses that are leading into the square area that picks up all the businesses along Bernard on the riverside. So do you guys have thoughts, or do you want to say?
What was the original reason for not including those two? Lily House and the fire station?
It was just Troy and I having an arbitrary conversation of
Oh, okay.
where focus was originally just to get this whole thing started.
Got it.
And that then as we've really started digging in, we're realizing that certain compatibility boundaries. So Granbury has their historic district, which is primarily the square and right around the square. And then they have developed what they call a compatibility historic district that is next to it that they are using as, because it's the lead-in to the square. And so they want to make sure that the things being done in that compatibility zone are similar, but not necessary. They don't have to follow the exact historic district guidelines, but that they don't want to be too far off.
Yeah.
Because they don't want something to say, what am I driving into when I have an expectation of what's next? So that kind of got us thinking, should we expand those zoning lines? And Dee had brought it up, Demetra, is should we take all of Bernard and wrap the whole entire Bernard Street into the downtown? And we said, no, that's a little much. But where kind of from the commercial line to the commercial line, or the curve to the curve is what I'd like to say. Because then the things that are going out, leading up to 67, that might be different.
My only question is, this is pertaining to new construction. Anything current is grandfathered?
Well, so what it actually pertains to, if you read let me get to the right page here. It's if you're doing new development, if you're doing anything that has more than,
Page 13.
thank you.
It's just
I
new
didn't have my
development.
glasses on. That was my problem. So it says, any land for which there's not development at the time, an increase in existing structure that is equal or greater than 50% of the existing square footage, or any new construction on the lot that provides an increase that is equal to or greater than 50% of the lot or tract that is covered. Which that's kind of been the standard, that says, if you're doing construction on an existing building, but you're doing more than 50% of the buildings being redone, that's when like you have to elevate to the new codes.
Right.
If you're expanding your lot size, if you've bought another lot and you're expanding your lot, all that tends to generate having to update to new code.
Right.
So if you're existing, you would be grandfathered in, unless you're doing major improvements. So if you're fixing a fence or redoing a roof, or none of that would pertain. But if you're tearing down half of your building and rebuilding it, or you're, help me here, Stephen, examples of when this would kick in.
Adding on.
Yeah, additions. That's when it would kick in. So as an example, Windstream, the lot over here on Windstream, they have asked to add another building as a business office. And so, no, all other underlying things on the side that they can't have a business office there because our code doesn't allow it. But if they were allowed, based on the size of what they were putting in, it would kick them into this. But if they were just putting a 10 by 10 shed up, it wouldn't. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. My next question was in section C, or B subsection C, building height, again, the third paragraph, 12-foot ceilings, that's how I read that.
So the interior height of the first floor of a commercial use structure would be a minimum of 12 foot from finished floor to finished ceiling. I'm open to discussions.
How tall is this ceiling?
Not 12 feet.
I think it shouldn't be any more than that.
Okay.
And then the last question, bottom of page 14, number 13, structures on infill lots shall match to the line of the existing adjacent building that is built closest to the property line. To my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that's talking about the height of a new building being no taller than the one next to it?
No, that's actually talking about the placement of the building from a setback standpoint.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
So facade to facade.
gotcha.
So this is, so this information that I have in here has been sourced from a lot of different places. In fact, Megan found one
Well,
where
I
I
figured
where
that
I
out.
missed
After we're done.
taking Mansfield out
Yeah.
and moving it to Glen Rose, which I would fix for the normal stuff. But all this is open for discussion. So none of this is set in stone. None of this is this is the way it is. This is about us and what do we feel is right.
Yeah, we're doing that.
And so the 12-foot came from Granbury, honestly, because they were looking at a lot of their historic buildings and that they wanted that big, airy building. I'm assuming that this is probably a 10-foot coming from floor to ceiling.
Yeah, nine and a half for 10 if the door is, what, 7 foot?
Probably 10, yeah.
So about a 10. But I know that there are shops and things that we have out here that are probably 8 foot. So from a new construction standpoint, what do we want? 8-foot ceilings in a commercial building?
Right.
And that's the key. It's a commercial building. Or do we want taller? Or, so I'm open. So we have one vote for 10. I threw 12 arbitrarily out there to get the discussion started.
Most commercial buildings are 10.
10? Unless anybody has an objection to changing that to 10? 10 sounds good? Okay.
Some searching here.
Megan, did you have thoughts on any of this?
No, is that, you're talking about going, but you're talking about expanding it right down to like College Avenue, but not that far? That's over there by the junior high, right?
Yeah,
And
so,
covering all that one side, like the, okay.
so more
That's what I was
along
looking at
the
earlier.
riverfront side, but hang on.
Going this way, right?
Well, had I known you'd been here, I would have brought my egg cartons for you.
I
Okay,
have so many, it's winter, they're not laying.
I was thinking,
But I'll take some.
because we're out
Okay.
there with the fire department, and all that, so it's not expanding
I
this
have some for
line.
you, I'll bring you some.
Well,
I have 23 chickens
Way
to
over
your
there.
8. You, yeah.
'Cause we're out there-
Okay, well, I have,
Is that what you mean going, taking this line?
yeah, I'm looking at it right here so I can
Going
make
right.
sure.
Yes, sir, you're right.
So going on to kind of coming up, so instead of ending here at Live Oak,
Mhm. It would be going.
following that down, but then cutting over on Bernard and coming all the way down to where basically this road, what road is that?
It's,
Shepherd,
Shepherd, yes.
coming down
Okay,
to
that's what I was
Shepherd.
thinking. Okay. I'm just
Coming down
making
to
sure I'm-
Shepherd.
I'm hearing it right. No?
That would be the thought, because that picks up. Well, then the other thought would be, do you go all the way down and grab Big Rocks Park and all of that? I don't know. I mean,
You're gonna have the fire department that's gonna be putting it, building their new
We're gonna have
bunkhouse.
the
yeah.
camp, right?
So I was kind of thinking we would come down to Shepherd right around Lily. So we'd grab Lily House, but leave the fire department out. Because that's tucked back further. But Lily House has front Bernard Street facade.
And the only other two is like the snow cone and the.
And then we would come down, yeah, so then we
I
would
mean, I don't know
come
if that's
down
what
right
you're
there.
And then there's the camp, right?
Right. But just, and again, it was just one person's thought, so I was throwing it out, because if we're gonna make the change, I'd rather make the change all together at once, but if we don't see a reason for that change, and just leave it where we are, right at where we come in, kind of right here on this curve where Storybrook is located, and Compass and Comanche Cabins are, the Airbnbs, I'm okay with that too. So I'm just, it was brought to me actually by the preservation chair to say, hey, would you consider going further?
Going further. That's what I was gonna ask. Is
Yeah.
what was the purpose of them wanting to go further? Like, how would it help? What will it hurt?
Their theory, so it was the preservations with that theory again of that compatibility zone, and
Okay.
just kind of taking that whole area and ensuring that as you're coming in from either side, you're starting to value the historic nature of our community. That's their theory.
Well, it does make sense to consider those buildings along. There's a couple historical buildings along there. And then you've got this 2-story, very modern building
Yes.
that doesn't fit the nature of what we're doing. And in terms of the ceiling, is it plenum height or just this height? Because There's another probably 18 inches to 2 feet above the ceiling.
This was finished ceiling to finished floor,
Okay.
is what it said.
Okay, great. All right, 10 feet, yeah, 10 feet.
Yeah, finished floor to finished ceiling, so that would give you the 10 feet.
Yeah.
Okay,
But if the concept is, as you're coming in, you're getting a feel for the town,
yeah,
I think that goes all the way up to the water station.
I agree with Greg.
And then on the other side too, a couple of those houses,
mm-hmm,
because you're coming in and you're starting to get a feel for the stone houses coming in. And it's starting to feel like a neighborhood.
so right next to, come in right by Big Rocks Park.
Right,
Yeah,
right, and right
yeah.
after Oakdale.
Okay, and then grab just the property line right along
That's not
Bernard
right.
on the
We'll go
north
back.
side and then going to the river on the south
Yes.
side.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
do you,
That's what I was.
what do you guys, so grabbing just the first properties along Bernard Street, the Bernard Street facing properties, and then go down to the river and come around. So right there, right at the border of Oakdale and kind of Big Rocks Park. So we wouldn't put Oakdale in it,
Essentially the dam,
the dam.
it's right across the street
Yeah.
from the property line of the park.
Okay, I'm good. What do you guys think? Do you like that?
I'm good with that. I like that.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, why don't,
Okay,
you don't want to extend it down and include the funky monkey shaped ice?
That's what I was saying, the snow cone and the laundry.
Laundry mat. The retreat.
Well, I can see that too.
I mean,
Yeah,
because the laundromat's empty now, right?
it is,
There-
unfortunately.
It's being.
Okay. Okay.
can't be done soon enough. I'm tired of looking at people telling, when's the laundromat opening?
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was gonna be something,
Okay, so so the line at Big Rocks Park, because, or the water, so are we putting the water, the sewer lift station parking lot in it or out of it?
Is there a drawback to putting it in?
yeah.
Just to make
Yeah.
it-
I don't think there is, because I
You're
don't
not
think that
gonna build
anything
anything.
they're doing there, I mean, other than
Just-
they were paving it.
Yeah, just leave it in.
Just fit it in.
So we'll leave it in. So then, does it make sense to put Big Rocks Park in or not? And we don't have to grab the second side of Bernard. We can,
Well, what does putting Big Rocks Park in?
I don't know that it does anything.
Okay.
Other than if we ever decide to do improvements there, it has to be done.
Yeah.
But since it's a city park, we're gonna assume the city is gonna try to make somewhat smart decisions.
Making
Director of
assumptions.
Development Services.
Bestie. Okay, so we're gonna pick the sewer station in, come right across to Oakdale Park, follow that first set of property lines across. So that will grab everything on like this side of Lily Street, so it grabs the Lily House, it grabs the community center. But it won't grab the fire station. And then we'll follow that. And then we'll take it all down to the river and then come across. So it picks up everything on Gray Street, which we were already doing. Does that make sense? You guys good with that? Okay,
Yeah, we're going all the way down to Glen Heights. You heard that right?
yeah, because Glen Lake,
These buildings, is that part of Oakdale?
And
yeah,
They own that? Oh, wait.
does that work?
The
Those
houses in
two.
front? No, I don't think so.
next is to make that.
Okay, so. First, the properties on the north of Bernard. I got more longitude latitudes to find. To the river. Okay. All right. Entrances, anybody have anything about orientation of scale and entrances? And again, as I sit here and read this again, it says, so the primary entrances, we can the primary orientation of this building should be primary oriented to the public street. We can say that that's commercial needs only and let residential not have to follow that. If you guys have a thought process. Because I can understand, well, we actually did allow the corner house, that's right there where Bernard and Grace, because of the way that the plat was, we allowed them to rotate the house so that it fit better. We didn't, city council did at one point, but I don't necessarily have a problem saying that residential doesn't have to face Bernard if they want to rotate their entrance, but commercial should face. And so I can change the language, instead of buildings, call it commercial buildings. Thoughts?
I'm just going visually down Bernard.
Well, it actually isn't Bernard. It says it has to face a public street.
Oh, face a public street. I got it. I'm just looking through the lots.
I don't see any reason a commercial building wouldn't want to be facing a public street with their entrance.
Yeah.
So they're gonna get,
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm trying to see why a residential house would not want to do that.
I don't know why.
I don't know why residential would want to.
So we leave it as just buildings.
Yeah.
Okay, done. Okay, awnings. So awnings may encroach over the sidewalk to within 4 feet of the curb, depending on the proximity to features such as traffic signals, lampposts, streets, and it must clear the sidewalk vertically by a minimum of 8 feet, and it's all subject to a building official. Are we good with that? Okay. Are we good with the fact that if they got boarded up windows, they need to deal with it?
So
So
what?
depends on when the windows were boarded, in my opinion. If they're boarded up now, I don't think we should say anything.
Well, existing buildings with boarded up windows on the first floor have 6 months from the effective date of this ordinance to comply. I pulled that from another city, so
That's a long time.
existing buildings with boarded up windows. See, this is where along Elm Avenue and Bridge Street that I pulled from another city will have 24 months to effectively comply. This was a cut and paste and it's showing. I don't know along this area, where I know the only building that really has some boarded up windows right now is back over here, the greenhouse.
Scott Mays.
That's the only one I know of any boarded up windows. That's the greenhouse located at Cedar and Vine on the southwest side of the street.
Stupid question. Why would they board up the window? Like,
The
what's
house is vacant.
Okay,
and
like what is
It's an
the
abandoned
point?
house,
Okay,
basically.
that's what I'm
It's,
Trying to keep people from breaking the
Breaking in.
windows and
Yeah.
breaking in.
hanging out.
They were boarded for a reason,
Mhm.
okay, want to take that out?
either that or abstain from that.
What do you guys think?
Um,
I don't think that we're in a blight area. I do believe that if this was a blight area, then this would be a bigger deal. But we're not. So I'm willing to release the boarded window thing without any issues.
My only thought when I was reading that was they boarded it up because neighborhood kids are breaking them. They're tired of paying for them, so.
Becomes a life safety deal.
Okay, all boarded window stuff is going to be removed. Done.
what do we have in there that does deal with, buildings that are in a, kind of diminished state.
That's all
That's
code
a
ordinance.
whole nother story.
That's all code ordinance. We're not doing that within this.
Okay, all right.
I know the director over there, you might wanna go talk to him.
All right, so building height, the minimum height for a one-story building, 15 feet. So if we're saying 10 feet for a ceiling, then a couple of extra feet above that is 15 good. And again, I'm willing to state that that's for commercial. Or do we need to lower that to 12? What are our thoughts? Leave it, we're good? Okay. Maximum height of a building on an infill lot is no more than one story above the tallest building on the lot. So for example, right over here on the ground by the ice house, you've got the 2-story central title building, which is probably about 30-ish feet tall. Right next to the ice house on the square. Okay,
One that's got the painting on it.
yeah, the mural, where the mural is,
Then you've got the vacant lot and then.
then you got the vacant lot, that's an infill.
Okay, yes.
That's an infill. So we wouldn't want somebody to build a 5-story building there. But they could go 1 story above their neighbor. Make sense?
Yeah, they could go 3 stories.
Yeah.
Then the next one could go 4.
It could get out of control, yes.
What if you,
1 story at a time.
You
Yeah,
could.
That's fine.
You could absolutely do that, yes. What if we what?
hypothetically, like if you bought a lot next to the property next to the hotel, and you got a 1-story on this side and a 4-story on this side, you can build 5.
5-story house.
Technically. I'm not saying it would make sense, but that's what this would allow. Are we okay with allowing that, or do we want to change that?
Well, what are we trying to moderate or?
As long as it doesn't block the water tower.
Well, we can live it. So, okay. St. Louis, Missouri, you are not allowed to build. I gotta remember this. If you're right next to the arch, you're not allowed to build taller than the arch. Washington, D.C., you're not allowed to build taller than the base of the Capitol dome. We can literally say, you're not allowed to build something taller than the bottom of the water tower. You wanna go that way?
I would get more detailed in sense of not obstructing the view of the water tower.
Okay.
Any point of egress or egress through the town. Well, on 67, on Big Bend. Now that we're putting lights on it and whatnot, it's kind of a showcase for Glenrose.
Yep, no, it is. So because it actually sits up higher on the hill, you're right, on 67, we're gonna have to add that in that 67 district to make sure that they don't block the tower. From here on the downtown district, I think if we say, I don't know how tall the water tower is.
You know, when we come.
Well, it's the sight line that you're really talking
Yeah.
about.
So you can't
So
have a
We probably
building.
should have somebody go out and survey and just, do a,
On the site map.
let us know
Okay.
that. To determine that, because depending on where you are, it's a different height.
Yeah.
I
say you can't
56
go any
will be
taller than
different
the courthouse.
Right.
Rodeo
Can't go
Hill.
any taller than the courthouse here in the
See?
downtown district.
See it?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense to go taller.
Can't go
than that.
taller than the cupola of the court. Can't go taller than the base of the cupola of the courthouse.
Mhm.
Yeah, but
How about-
the question would be,
With that
depending on
block.
where you're standing, looking there, can you see the water tower?
I can tell you because of the hills and undulations of the ground, there are places down here you still can't see the water tower.
Yeah, I don't
So,
think the visual effect of not building taller than the water tower should be considered anywhere outside of Big Bend.
Right, so I think here on the downtown area, I like using the base of the cupola.
Yes.
Nothing higher than the top of the, okay.
Yep.
I'm good with that, okay.
Okay.
So I gotta put my glasses back on so I can write, because I can't talk to people when I can't see them. But I put my glasses on, then I can't see them, so
You can't write.
then I can't write.
Talking about Building, not building, or you said you could build one story taller than the building next to you. All right, never mind.
Yeah, I think this changes that. Correct.
Yeah, if you have, I'm trying to think, is there anywhere? This side of the square, everything is one story. But if somebody decided to knock down one of these buildings and build, they could only go 2 stories on this side of the square.
Won't they run into preservation issues?
Oh, God, yes, they would. Of course they would.
Of course not.
No, actually, they probably wouldn't, as long as they were building in keeping with the historical look. You go down this corner or this side, you've already got 1 and 2 story buildings. And you go along Bernard Street, you've got 1 and 2 story and 3 story buildings. So I don't know that we actually do need you can't go more than 1 story, as long as we keep to you can't go above
The cupola.
the cupola, the base of the cupola. Make sense? Okay. I'm gonna take out C2 and base of cupola. Okay. All right, building width, any questions, concerns? Loading and unloading, obviously,
Makes sense.
makes sense. Building material, reflecting the traditional materials, similar buildings of Glen Rose, wood siding, horizontal overlap, novelty siding,
One,
limestone, petrified wood, fieldstone, all good. So metal buildings,
why not? Why not?
why not? Because you're not keeping with the building material. Now, here's where I'm going with this. In my opinion, you can build a metal building, but you're gonna then have to put the siding on it to meet.
Yes.
So it's a facade thing, not a metal building. I don't care if you construct a metal building, you just gotta make it look like it's one of
Yes.
our historical
I
buildings,
agree.
okay? I gotta figure out how to write that.
And as long as they're not prefabbed, not bolt together buildings.
Okay, so that's what pre-engineered, do you wanna call that differently?
No, that's fine.
I guess
Pre-engineered.
pre-engineered, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it
As long
is.
as it's not just bolt together.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can use metal building materials, but I don't want you to go out and buy a metal shed from Home Depot, slap that on a lot, and then put stone on it.
Correct.
So we're all on the same
Yeah,
page.
it needs to be.
Okay, so the exterior building materials, so metal buildings, it's pre-engineered metal buildings shall not be permitted. You're okay with that? Metal as an interior construction material, absolutely allowed. Okay,
Is that what that says, though?
I think that's what it says. Pre-engineered metal buildings shall not be permitted. I can further explain that metal building materials can be utilized as long as the facade meets the exterior building materials.
Yep.
I can add that.
Yeah, I think,
Is that,
Page
Page
15,
15.
okay,
paragraph X, level D. Or IS. We're on private frontage.
Okay, so metal building materials will be allowed as long as it meets the exterior building materials requirement. Is that good?
Well,
And you still have the no pre-engineered.
Right. Does that make sense to you, Stephen?
What would, how
What
would
doesn't
you,
make
how would you,
sense?
how would you say it, Stephen?
Because you're eliminating the pre-engineered buildings, in which that's what most metal buildings are. They've got to be,
Okay, but if
Engineering.
I'm allowing,
I think we need to find a standard
So,
to how they're supposed to be built and
I think-
reference it.
yeah, because you can have metal structure and then clad it
right,
with steel. But what we're trying to do is, what's the little business up on 67? Yeah, we don't want one of those prefab units.
We don't want Joe Blow getting the design and putting it up himself. It's fine if he goes and gets it, as long as a professional puts it up and it's done to a standard that I don't think we can describe right now, other than it's welded together, it's a solid building.
You don't want a Dollar General. What you're saying.
We do not want a Dollar General.
my question
And
is,
as long
why
as
it's got to be welded?
I just think it's better. Engineers will tell you it's better. But as long as all this other criteria is met, and it doesn't look like a metal building,
I think that's the key.
is the main thing.
I mean,
Well-
I mean, if I get, so if somebody is going to have a lot and goes out and puts a metal building on it, whether it's prefabbed, that they bolt together and, buy it from Home Depot, or they put it together themselves, and they're doing something in it, it's got commercial purpose or residential living or whatever it is they're doing with it, there's building permits that have to be pulled. And so there's standards for making sure that it's leak proof and da 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 da. The key for us is I don't want it to look like it's a metal building. I don't really care what you do on the inside, but I don't want to drive down the street and go, ooh, that's a shed.
Yeah.
So I think if we keep the exterior standards that the materials should reflect the traditional materials, I'm less concerned about the metal building prohibition.
Well, I'm just trying to think through what scenario someone would actually do that and put a stone facade around the metal building.
I was kind of wondering that too, but I'm not a building.
I will tell you.
It just sounded kind of off, but.
And
Stinson's, Wilson, they've been doing it up on 67. Now, they're not cladding the whole thing. They're putting like a stone border on it, but it's a metal building.
is that what we want down here?
No,
It's Dollar General.
we want the whole thing clad. The entire exterior to look like it is one of our historical buildings.
Well, why not just eliminate all metal buildings?
Because, okay,
There's not much economic, I mean, if you're gonna go through a clad metal building, you're taking away a lot of what the reason you do metal buildings, which is efficiency and cost saving.
To
So,
me, it's just, you're talking about cladding the outside,
right,
yeah. So yes, in that sense, as a facade, no. But as far as building a metal building, in my mind, I was thinking, instead of building walls out of lumber, I'm building them out of metal.
yeah, but, I mean, so
Yeah,
what
to
would
me,
be the
this says
advantage,
you
what
can't
would be
do
the
that.
advantage of why would somebody do it that way?
It just lasts longer.
Yeah.
No termites, no wood ants, nothing.
Yeah,
There are two metal buildings that are in that area, which would be what's gonna be baked and what's Sexton Mills.
no, that's a good, and that looks,
Okay, well, Sexton Mill is a historic building, so I kind of got to give them a little bit of room.
Well, I know, I'm just saying
I'm
there
not-
are
well,
metal buildings.
No, you are.
Yeah, and baked is another good example
What the hell?
of a metal building that looks appropriate for the area.
So if we went with a metal facade has to receive a variance from city council.
That's,
So what's here,
that's a good.
what's
that's a good
here,
thought experiment.
we're grandfathered,
Yeah.
but you can't build a new one.
But I'll bet what's in,
Does that look like a bolt together building?
the bakery, I bet it's a wood frame interior, the metal clad exterior.
Was that?
Does that look like a bolt together metal building?
Which one is that you're looking at?
No, looks like houses.
It's a fire station
First, yeah.
and it's a bolt together metal building. I built it.
Alright.
That's why I'm trying to figure out.
Okay, so I think the key of what this really is, and when we say this, is we don't want a metal building to just exist as a metal building without thought. I don't actually care about the building materials of how you get the building up. We care about the facade because again, we're trying to keep that look from,
To me, that's
that's the important piece. So I think that saying the pre-engineered metal buildings, I can take that out, saying it's not, but I do think we need to say while we have some metal buildings in the downtown area, a metal facade would have to receive a city council approval.
Yeah, and I think we should also have some developed design standards
Okay,
as well.
all right.
That the city council can evaluate the building against the
Sure.
design standards.
And we have time to do that outside of making this ruling, because that's different. Because we're telling them if you're gonna try to do a metal facade, you have to seek city council.
Yeah.
There's a whole variance process they have to go through,
Right.
and then
More work for me.
and we'll have time. Job security.
I've got enough job security right
I'm
now.
just looking out for you.
Okay. All right. Facade design, they should be, new buildings should be designed to closely resemble those related to, et cetera. I'm gonna tell you the best example of that is the Garrett's architect. He did that, it's brand new, but it really is in keeping with the square.
Wait, the Garnett?
Right next to, I probably said the wrong name, Jeff
It's Garnett. Okay.
Garnett, right next to La Vida. Okay. Sidewalks minimum of 8 feet. We good?
Is that what we have now?
State rule, right? Yeah. I think it's a new
It's an
one.
ADA rule, I'm not.
It is an ADA thing. Okay, street lighting shall be designed to be sensitive to dark sky. Well, that went out the window when we put the new lights up on the square, so I'm okay letting that go. I mean, I hate that we have to let our dark sky process go.
We have to?
Well, I think what we need to state is that the light should not be intrusive upon, neighbors. We can't keep to the dark sky principle because we blew that out of the water with the lights that are on the buildings on the square. Freaking,
You mean those Edison lights?
no, the ones that are on top of the buildings that make it
Oh.
look like daylight in the middle of the night, that I can look out a window in my hotel and see the square and go, oh,
Why did we do that?
try.
We don't have a dimmer switch?
No. Don't. Troy will tell you that was the lowest wattage bulbs he could get.
No, it's not.
We agree.
Well, why, but It's not the lowest Kelvin.
Okay.
It's the temperature.
So the lighting should be designed that it's not pointing up, that it's pointing down, and that it is not, that it just should meet our lighting standards that we already have in our light ordinance. Which means you can't shine light into your neighbors. We should try to have the lights pointing down, and we do have light loom standards in our lighting ordinance. So are we good with just saying that?
Yes, ma'am.
So I
It's
can
also
take that.
building codes.
So I can take that whole lighting element out because it just meets anything they're doing has to meet our lighting ordinances anyways. Fencing, chain link fence, barbed wire fence, not allowed. In this downtown area. Okay,
Is there, I mean, again, so they can do like a wooden or whatever.
yeah,
But is there there's already have requirements or minimum or,
there's fencing requirements.
okay, I just mean around here, like, no, you can't build like a.
Yeah, no, we have ordinances around fencing and height and privacy, but we're just saying, hey, you can't.
Yeah.
Use of a chain link fence.
In Lancaster, they banned that in the entire city. It's gotta be wood fencing.
I'm not going that far. Okay, uses. So rather than putting down every single one of our schedule of uses line items, we basically went through and said that accessory utility government institutional buildings will require specific use permits. Agriculture is going to require specific use. So every category we have is going to require a specific use permit, except basic things that were not related to residential. If it was residential related, there isn't a specific use permit requirement. But if it's commercial related, a specific use permit was needed. And the theory behind that was that it allows, and I'm going to say this, these are not my words, because this idea came from someone else. It allows us to have discussions about the businesses that are coming into the downtown area so that we have the ability to create some diversity and keep a tourism draw, which is the primary purpose of this downtown area, to support our local residents and be a tourist draw, as opposed to businesses that are non-tourist residential supporting. Was that lightning?
Yeah.
Okay. Does everybody?
Yeah, I get that. I know who you talked to on that.
You're talking to me?
No.
Joking.
No.
Because I will say, what you say specific, when I went to the code, because it still says, so y'all have to help me. I'm trying to go back to find it real quick. Because it's 14.02.102. Just specific uses.
Yeah,
In general.
somewhere in there, yeah.
Okay.
But you have for C, it just says uses, and then you have D that goes to uses, so do we just need to take one of those out?
So I had each of these as categories of our schedule of uses. So A, B, C, D, E, and D and E are, when you look at our schedule of use chart.
That's what I'm at.
Yeah.
Now.
But you've got C says uses.
Oh, yeah, sorry. The D was
Okay.
you couldn't correct me when you were printing this stuff?
So it says each sub-application must be evaluated as to its probable effect on the adjacent property and community welfare and may be approved or denied, right, by us?
No. So specific use permits come before the P and Z for recommendations. We can either then recommend it to go to city council for an approval, or we can recommend it against approving it to city council with our reasons.
And that
Okay.
goes for everything.
But that's what I mean. I
Yeah.
mean everything. That's what
Yeah.
I'm looking at.
Yeah, so the only thing that we actually have final on is plats. if a plat didn't exist. Then we have plats, and that's us, and it doesn't go to council. But everything else is us making recommendations to council.
Okay, and but
Okay.
still based off of these, like for it
Correct.
says, you know,
Correct.
what would be best for that, okay?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Any garages or parking lots specific for the use of parking only, not related to a lot connected to a commercial enterprise would require the specific use. So a business, so one of the other things is they have to follow, the downtown square does not require parking. But every other zone off of B3 has parking minimums requirements. But if somebody were to buy a lot and say, I am doing nothing on this lot, I have no building and business attached to it, I'm just going to run it as a public parking lot, that would require a specific use permit. But a parking lot that is being built because of a business that exists would not require a specific use permit. Make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. The key about specific use permits is that they're actually, in this case, going to look a lot like development agreements. So they would include what are going to be the parking requirements for that business. What are the sidewalk usage, what landscape requirements, signing, lighting, light usage, and usage type. So a specific use permit is traditionally about a single thing, and then you can apply conditions that would be a reason for the specific use permit to be pulled. In this case, the specific use permit will also include what would traditionally be a business development agreement. So that we're not creating a development agreement and a specific use permit. We're doing it all in one. Are we cool with it? That was Troy's idea.
It makes sense.
Okay. This all makes sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. With the changes that have been discussed, do I have a motion to approve?
I motion to approve with the changes discussed.
Second.
All right, with a first and a second, I would like to ask who all in favor? Okay. Perfect. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna admit it, the next one gets a little dicier in dialogue.
How's it possible?
But here's the reality, it's really the next two, because they're the exact same, they're just different boundaries. Okay, I literally cut and pasted all the requirements. So one of the things that our community seriously has to consider is our workforce, and housing for our workforce. And a lot of the developments that have been coming into town, the housing is, in that 300 to plus houses. We are a tourist town as the primary industry. Then we have ranching and oil, and then far, far down the list, we have white collar workers, etc. When you look at the salary range of the majority of our workforce, for tourist establishments, for the restaurants, for the local shops, the retail, everything that is about what we are as a town, most people are making anywhere from $7.25 an hour to maybe $18, $20 an hour.
Well, I mean, if I look at it coming from my school point of view, we're a Title I school. That means you have to be in a poverty level.
Right.
So,
Yeah, the median income in
Yeah.
Glen Rose is 34,000 per
Yeah.
family.
Right. So what we're looking for is taking two areas of town that have been traditionally some of those smaller homes, trailers, things that smaller lots, etc., and which right now are being built where there's more duplexes going in over there, that there's more opportunity for some of these things to keep the housing down, to keep rental costs down, and long-term housing as opposed to short-term rentals. So I created 2 areas just for the simple sake of I'm trying to cross Austin and 144 and whatnot, and getting the clean lines was difficult. So the first area I was looking at is what I called the Paluxy River area. And it's literally along the river, going up, kind of following Paluxy, not your property, and then coming around and cutting back over, so like where the Dollar
The Dollar
General
General
is,
one.
yeah, and then coming back around Elm and reconnecting at the river. And there's not really a neighborhood name for that I could find. So
Biloxi Estate, it's not
no, Paluxy Estates is actually this way.
Oh, okay.
This is the Paluxy Estates area.
Oh, this is where, I know, okay.
So this
Yeah,
is
I
like the
know.
Bidees have the
Okay.
trailers,
Yeah.
the lots, etc.
Right. Mhm.
So
But then there's a neighborhood, right, just these little, just normal.
yeah, so
regular-
yeah, so when you're looking at this, these are really small lot sizes.
Yeah.
You've got some larger lots back here on the front the river, but that's most of those are the places that are probably condemnable.
Yes, they are.
And so in order to protect housing for our labor force so that we can have people that live and work locally, I came up with this idea. And I did a lot of research with HUD. I did a lot of research of what other towns were doing. And a lot of them were calling them neighborhood sustainable. So I kind of played with this idea. So this is me just throwing something out there so that we can all discuss. And I really am depending on, Rex, you and Tony, you to kind of give some real feedback on this. My thought process behind it is that we're really looking at not allowing oversized buildings being built on these lots. We're trying not to have somebody fill the entire lot. So I kind of was trying to and I looked a lot around the country. And I own a house in Florida that's a 0.2 acre lot, and that the house is 1,098 square feet. So it gives you a lot of that neighborhood feel, some land. We're not just all tight up on each other, which is what is really right there right now. So I kind of posed this idea that a primary building should not be more than half the lot size if the lot is 0.09 acres or less. If it's a half acre or a 0.05 acre lot, which is a 2,000 square foot lot, then it really can't, the building needs to stay down at that 1,089. And that just gives a little green space between everything. So you're not putting house on top of house. That's my idea. I'm throwing it out there. I want feedback. And then I said lot sizes that are 0.9 acres or larger would be no more than a third of a lot size.
Struggle with my chair.
That's okay. So what do you guys think? And I'm open for all interpretations. This was just me looking at, okay, if the lot size was this, how big of a house would we want to see on it so that we could keep some green space for these people, but not make them oversized housing?
Don't our current setbacks
This way.
say not more than 40% lot coverage?
So
I think so.
is that enough? Because these are R2s and R3s in here as well.
But I think the way our zoning is, it's not more than 40%.
Regardless of anything. But we have been allowing that a lot lately.
I'm confused as to where this thing.
So-
Like what his house.
Not
One-
since December.
One source has a house to lot ratio of 20 to 33%. So for example, 5,000 square foot lot might mean 1,000 to 1,600 square foot house.
Yeah.
3,000 square foot lot would be a 600 to 1,000 square foot lot. Do we know?
So the lot sizes are all, they're just all over the board.
map?
They're all over the board.
So 40% is within the range of what I'm seeing here. 48 units, we don't have an acre available here.
You do.
Oh, we do, okay.
We do.
So,
Yeah, because it says maximum lot coverage 40% all across except for mobile home. It allows 50%.
Okay, so this
40%.
whole idea is needless and I take it out.
Yeah, the only other thing that has 50% is industrial.
Okay. Do want to talk about tiny houses because I am a big proponent that that's what's going to be affordable for people. And by state law, a tiny house is no more than 400 square feet. And it can be built on a lot size of at least 500 square feet. So you can take a couple of these lots that we have and build multiple tiny houses on them.
Can you put more than one dwelling on one?
more than one
Dwelling?
dwelling.
That would be something we would write into this, that we would allow that
Yeah.
if it was a tiny house. Because right now, if it's an R1, no. If it's an R2 or an R3, R4, yes. So we have a lot of people that live in RVs.
Right.
Which in essence is a mobile tiny house.
Right.
But a
Well,
tiny
they
house,
can't be in motorhomes. They're not supposed to.
we
be-
have a lot of people living in fifth wheels.
Walnut Springs is putting in some tiny home, they've got some areas with tiny.
They're living in RV parks and all of that, and they're living on somebody else's land that we haven't caught them all, and a lot of it's out in the county. I get it. But there's a freaking lot of people that live in a fifth wheel. And I think that if we could do private public partnerships, and we can create some tiny house areas in these worker areas, it would be a better living experience. Affordable.
Be a pretty man camp.
What's that?
A pretty man camp.
Pretty man camp.
I know women that are living in the fifth wheels.
That's just. what
With,
they're
yeah, no, I got it. I mean, I know some women and children living in fifth wheels right now.
But, I
called.
mean,
I've lived in one for almost 10 years.
And from,
can you pile 16 people in there though? Like, I mean, is it allowed? Like, that's
well, there's occupancy
what I
limits and
mean,
whatnot, yeah. But if you took one lot
That would be
that's,
scary.
absolutely.
I had 238 people in the end one day. Don't ask. It was a
Is
freeze.
there any way you can put like a concept design if that's what they're wanting to do? Put in several houses on a little lot, request a concept.
Basically an RV park. It's tiny home.
We can put it that it has to be on a permanent foundation.
And at that point, it would be a commercial business.
Because you have to have a tiny home, must have a working toilet, running water, tub or shower, floor area, because this was all state stuff.
Plum, but.
But you can set it that it has to be on a permanent foundation. We don't have to say
You need to pay.
a foundation.
Concrete slab. and then
Concrete
put-
slab.
With
Put tie
electricity.
downs
Yeah.
to it where it's tied down to the concrete.
You can build a tiny home as if it's a real home. It's just a smaller home.
You could.
Can you
But
put
is it
the-
worth a builder's time? I mean, okay,
I
that's,
think you're gonna
that's
get,
what
it's
I'm-
gonna be like an RV park.
Can you put the facade requirements and all that in the
Mhm.
building? Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, so would it be like worth it though, to somebody to build that?
In the
Well,
long run, yes.
But they won't be in the historical overlay.
no, they're not in the historical overlay, but we still have
The facade.
exterior building materials should reflect the traditional materials of similar buildings in Glen Rose. Because even when you're back in those homes, you know, most of the older homes are still wood clad. You've got some stone houses.
Sure.
You have some cobbles,
That's
so
what
you
most of those
still have to
townhouses
kind
are.
of meet that guideline.
Mhm.
So part of this is you've got, and then that was the other conversation about the manufactured homes. Because we've got a lot of mobile homes that should also be condemned.
Mhm.
And so, and back in that area,
Look,
got a couple that I'm not quite sure how people are still living in them. So putting some standards around what, if you're gonna put a mobile home in, because you're allowed in some of those areas. And hey, great, but, the manufactured home date, so 1974 is the date that the home has to be manufactured for it to be allowed anywhere in the country for living purposes. There are some places that are saying, hey, you can't bring in a mobile home that is not, so no manufactured home more than 5 years of age may be located in the city, except that an older manufactured home may be permitted with a specific use permit in this housing overlay district. But it still has to be the 1974 or greater or younger. And it's just to try to get people who are bringing in these mobile homes to bring in a little bit better.
I don't know.
Well, a lot
Got
of them are
mobile homes as
rented.
old as I am then.
I know, right? Well, they're all rented and it's the
It's a-
people that
it's a
are renting them out
15-year-old.
should be keeping them up and.
Well, I mean, yeah, no, I mean, it's ridiculous. I looked everywhere to see if there's somewhere it has been updated to say that you have to live in something, you can't use a 1974 mobile home, but no, the law is still 1974.
That's a 50-year-old mobile home.
Yeah,
51.
yeah. So I would like to say, no, you gotta be at least 5 years.
Yeah.
If you're bringing in a new mobile home, it's gotta be 5 years. But if you're in this particular area, you can come to P and Z or city council and get a specific use permit to say you can have an older one in. But in that, Stephen gets to go and inspect it and make sure that it's actually livable and safe.
Well,
And-
SUP still has to go, a mailing still has
Right.
to go to everybody.
Right. So, like I said, this is all a new concept and idea. And so I'm just trying to find a way to make sure that as things are being torn down or as our older generations are dying off, that the children are not selling out to the high-priced developers who are paying 4 times as much as they should so they can build a mini McMansion on it. That's my concept. I am open to any way to achieve it. I'm just throwing some ideas out there for us to talk through.
Yeah, these tiny homes are still gonna cost 70 to 120,000 to build.
And then if you're putting more requirements, like you've gotta have I mean, that's what, I'm just wondering if it's worth the builder's time. But I understand the concept, I think I like
Well,
it.
I was really hoping with a public-private so that
Yeah.
we can reduce some of those things.
Yeah.
But
Some grants.
yeah,
I mean, you're a builder, right? I mean, so it means that we're
No,
here.
I'm talking the dirt.
Okay. Never mind.
Big dirt.
Is it- I mean,
he has family members who do
There
other
you go.
stuff.
I just don't know if he'll get the draw, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay, so let's,
Yeah.
let's break down to a very, make sure we're all on the same concept. Do we all see a need to take certain areas of town and ensure that we have for our lower hourly workers
Affordable housing, right?
without having to go through government assistance housing?
Well, because we don't have much of that either.
Right. So that's what I was just taking these two areas that were traditionally looked like that,
Mhm.
and how do we keep it for that was my goal. How we do that, I'm open to all sorts of ideas. And if you guys don't think that that's what we should be doing, then I'm willing to cross this whole thing off.
I see doing it, I just don't know if that area, I don't know. I have to.
So I stare across the river at 3 mobile homes that how they're still standing is a miracle.
Mhm.
And I know that the minute that the owner of those homes has a funeral, something is going to get sold. And then I'm going to be staring at a mega McMansion right next to a power plant transfer station. But that's okay. If that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. My fear, and probably less in this area than more in the Wolf City area, is as our elderly die off, their next generations are going to sell to the highest price. We've seen it on 67. We're seeing it all on these ranches. What do we do to ensure that our police, that our fire department, that our teachers, that our restaurant workers, that our retail shops have a place to live that they can afford? So if we want to go back and do more research and come back in another meeting with some ideas, I'm open.
I don't think we're gonna solve it through a planning and zoning. This is a development question.
But we've got to start by putting the overlay in place to create an area that the development can focus on.
Got it.
So I can create we can go ahead and vote in the overlay district. And then we need to have something in it that says, hey, you can't just sell it off to the highest bidder. Whether that's going back to everything needs a specific use permit until we come up with a better plan or something. But I'm just looking for a way that we protect certain parts of town to ensure that our labor force that powers this town can have a place to live.
Right.
Well, this
So
is just
you
an
can
idea of
This is,
what this area can be used for.
right.
Just because the property sells and someone buys it, doesn't mean they have to do this. They
Or
still
doesn't,
build a
yeah.
traditional home.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, absolutely.
I don't have a problem with it. The manufactured homes, the skirting section, is the only thing I had a question of.
Okay,
Says the skirting for a manufactured home, material, and color should consist with the exterior of the home itself. This still means they can, if they have
I can ditch that whole sentence and just say that the foundation skirting has to exist.
all the way around.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
I mean, I think it should match and it should be aesthetically pleasing, but if they have a siding on the house, they should be able to do rock or brick.
okay. Well, that goes back to then the facade statement that we have that you need traditional materials similar.
I think just take out the skirting shall be,
That whole sentence?
yeah, just
I'm good.
that sentence.
I'm good. I'm fine with that.
What was the name? You mentioned the HUD Sustainable Housing, what's it called?
Workforce housing.
Okay,
Sustainable neighborhoods.
got it. That's,
There are cities that are doing that. So that they are,
Past the international zoning code. That's the regular building codes.
what are you thinking? His rabbit's going.
I'm looking at two different ICC codes
Uh-huh.
that I don't know if those were passed by city council. One is International Zoning Code, and the other one is International Tiny House Code.
Neither has been passed by city council.
So I think that's something I need to push
Okay,
on that if we want
do
to. This
this.
zoning code takes into these overlay
Okay,
districts and stuff as well.
okay.
Because I'm thinking about updating
Twin Towns.
up to 21 codes, but I gotta get city council approval.
Okay.
And if I can sneak that in there.
Alright. The key thing, and again, I'm more than willing, yes, so this is if you're coming into this area and you say, I just want to build a traditional house, that's not stopping you from doing that. It's if you want to build something unique and different, then this is what it would follow. The specific prohibited uses that I'm suggesting we put in these areas is for short-term rentals, bed and breakfast accommodations, cabins, industrialized housing, and private street development. And that is because, again, we want to keep whatever is there geared towards residents and not tourism. There really isn't a reason to have that they should. We have lost a lot of housing to short-term rentals. And so we're 90 homes short of something that next, whatever that was at the last city council meeting of our needs. But we have 85 houses that are short-term rentals. So if we, in this particular area, we're not allowing people to put them as short-term rentals so that it would go, if they want to lease them out, it's long-term leasing to residents. That's not an area that would be ideal.
Saying Airbnb, right?
Yeah, Airbnb. Saying no to Airbnb.
Airbnb is short term.
Right.
Yeah,
that's what I
saying
was
no to
like, yeah.
Airbnb,
Just
no to
making sure.
VRBO. In that zone. We allow it in other zones.
I
It's
know,
all
it's
up
allowed in
Texas.
my
but-
zone.
Yeah, but
Not
in
like
this
that.
particular zone, we wouldn't allow it.
Because it costs a lot of.
And then we can always come back, and just like we did with the whole downtown, we can change things, we can readjust, we can bring more ideas forward, but this is just a starting point. So thoughts? Do we want to move forward with what little we have based on the changes we've discussed? Do we want to wait? Do we want to just say, hey, here's the zone and here's the restricted uses? Because in the state of Texas.
I think we're clear on those two things.
So in the state of Texas, R1s are, you have to allow short-term rentals in R1s. So R1s are all over town. By taking the R1s in this location and putting everything that's in this zone that has an R1 and an R2 and all that, and saying, no, you can't have a short-term
By
rental.
using the overlay.
Using the overlay. So even if all we did tonight was vote the overlay in with the parameters and then just said, here's restricted uses. And then we can always come back after more research and add everything else. If we need to add anything else. Is that,
Are there short-term rentals in this area
Right now.
currently?
There's,
I don't think there is anymore.
yeah, there used to be,
How would we
but I
know?
don't think.
But again, that would be grandfathered in
Yeah.
until the house is sold. And then their specific use permit,
They'd have to
they would have to,
try to reapply, but it wouldn't.
Correct. But they wouldn't be able
There's
to.
one,
Right.
there's one.
Yeah.
If they're grandfathered, I'm good with it.
okay. So let me just what about the external building materials in keeping with the traditions of Glen Rose?
That's
We'll
fine.
we'll keep that. Do we want to keep the manufactured home or get rid of that for now?
If you're gonna do tiny homes, they're gonna be pre-manufactured.
Well, I mean, saying the whole section on the mobile homes and
Oh, those.
those. Do we leave that in for now or do we take that out for now?
See that?
It's the one that says if you're gonna be older than 5 years, you need to get a specific use permit.
What about
And you gotta
the
have the
windows?
skirting. Huh? I already took that out based on all our other discussions.
Yeah, I think-
Okay, so I take the tiny home thing out.
Because most of the people I know who have them, they're older than 5 years.
Yeah, but if you're gonna bring a new one in,
A new 5-year-old.
yeah. So I'm taking out special requirements, lot sizes and building sizes. I'm taking out tiny homes. I'm taking out the whole building design about boarded up windows. I'm leaving exterior building materials. I'm leaving new designs and tradition with historic styles. I'm leaving sidewalks. I'm taking out outside sidewalk. And I took out, and this one I just said no barbed wire fencing. Chain links were fine. I just said no barbed wire. And then I leave the prohibited uses. So is that good? Does that work to get us started on
You
something?
said you did take out the tiny home section?
I did cut the tiny home section.
Oh,
Well, I thought we were gonna go back and research
go
it
back
some
and
more.
research.
okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay,
I've got to look up tiny homes and workforce.
okay,
housing.
all right. So with those changes, what I am calling the Paluxy River Housing District overlay, do I have a motion to approve?
I move.
Okay,
I'll second.
motion has been approved and seconded. All in favor? Okay. I'm gonna make the next one easy. Wolf City was exactly the same. Just, I make the same changes to it.
I motion to accept.
Can I just ask really quick, what is industrialized housing? Is that like the when you're-
Industrialized housing in our definitions has been, container housing.
Okay,
Like shipping containers.
okay, that's not what I was thinking, so,
It's like command camp you were talking about.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cause I was thinking it was like, when they have restaurants on the bottom and then your apartment's
No.
on top.
In this case, it was a
That's
whole
why.
thing on shipping container and some of that kind of housing and very modern looking housing. All right, I had, Tony, motioned for the Wolf City Housing District overlay with the changes discussed from the Paluxy River. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Okay. Okay, so the next one comes down to Highway 67. And honestly, I want everybody, so I provided some research material on things, and actually that's why it said Mansfield. So I put some very simple, basic things that we've already talked about getting rid of, and other things. I've put a map in, but I really haven't said where the district confines should be on this. And so, I mean, part of me says from Bernard Street to Bernard Street, but then maybe even a little down Bernard Street and picking up those first couple of blocks on each side, or taking it all the way down and around to where it hits the downtown district. I don't know. But then it also came down to, what do we want it to do? And so what I actually provided you guys when you start at page 32 is these are different cities. And kind of what they are doing in some of their highway zones. And that's why 43 said Mansfield, because it is Mansfield's.
Okay.
So I just truly, this is, council asked for us to kind of look at what we would want to do with 67 to, again, make it appealing. But I decided that this is something I've given you, like Plano, and I've given you Mansfield, and I've given you, I can't remember the other town, it's in there somewhere. And so for me, I really just wanted you guys to have some materials so that we can talk about this again.
Okay.
We can talk right now and kind of say, what is the general goal that we would want to see, so that then as we're all looking at things, we can think about how would we do this, if we need to do anything. So I have no great desire to solve the world's, crisis on this one tonight. But thought that we can talk about some overall thoughts. And go back, do some more thinking, do some research, ask people questions,
Okay.
whatever we need to do. So the person, this came from council. And so the thought was, we've all driven down some highways, and you drive into a town that you look like, yeah, I'm not stopping here. And we don't want that to be the look of our town.
Well, it already is.
Some of it.
You were right. So again, as property is changing hands, as new developments are coming in, what would be kind of some ideals? And I don't think, I would say, I don't want us to look like, Stepford Wives, where everything looks identical and we're, matchy-matchy. Part of our ruralness is that, things do look different. Things are, we will allow the metal buildings with some type of things, but as I sit here and talk about, and God bless, nobody please die tonight after I say names, but when we look at Red Barn and how long is he gonna hold on to that? When we look at some of the other properties and how long some of the people who,
Right.
there's gonna start being some change of hands. Retirements might happen. So
Well,
if properties start changing hands, what do we want to do?
we'll certainly have standards on facades, design standards
Which means we need an
And
overlay
sign-
district.
and sign standards.
Okay, so we need an overlay district to do that, because we cannot have design standards
Okay.
with just base zoning. So we have to have an overlay to get any type of a design standard.
Yeah, now, kind of a question before all that is, can we enforce standard maintenance, signage standards in what
We
we've already done?
have that already in our current code.
Okay,
We have, as you are aware, for the last 5-ish years, had a staffing shortage
well,
in the city
so one could
building
lead-
department.
One could lead to the other, because if someone says, you've got to bring this building up to code, they may say, I'm out of here.
Well, bringing the building up to code is different than
Again, I understand.
signage meeting our code. And so again, when somebody builds a sign, whenever it is installed, it follows the code of that day.
Right.
from when the permit is pulled, it follows that historical code. So it repair and making sure that, if you've got, danger, if the sign is leaning, if the sign is broken, falling apart, pieces of it are missing, that we have in our sign ordinance to enforce. Our sign ordinance has evolved over the last 5 years from where it was even 10 years ago. So somebody who put a sign up in
Sure, right.
2005, or 2015, we have a different sign ordinance today. So getting them to comply to new sign ordinances is not an option. Unless their sign becomes so damaged that they have to replace the signage because of
Tear it down, start over.
maintenance things. So again, when we look at sign ordinances, we do have the sign ordinance broken down by some zoning. But again, you've got B1, B2, B3 over here in the downtown district. That sign ordinance is going to be different than the sign ordinance up on 67.
Right.
Because this sign ordinance, we want to look more appropriate to the
Sure.
downtown area, to the heritage of the town. On 67, you want your signs to not look like crap, but to be noticeable and visible at a higher speed.
Right.
So building.
So what we're working on is just to create an overlay district for 67, that we can come back and begin to define
what that should,
what, future purchases.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I think that, that's kind of we've got to do that if we're ever gonna get control of the growth coming in.
we do. So, do we have, so my first idea is that you start 67 on the far side of town.
Right,
You-
At the stoplight.
Well, no, where there isn't one.
Or the
I'm sorry,
McDonald's, Or the McDonald's.
that side of town,
Oh, that's
205.
205.
We start at 205.
Got it.
And we basically go one property deep on both the north and the south side of 67.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I agree.
And then we just follow that all the way down to the stop sign, Exxon, Dollar General. That would be the first start. Do we then take this side of town where the Dollar General is, and do we extend the 67 corridor down a little bit to pick up G-Rex and where the pool supply coming around the
Yeah,
corner,
absolutely.
pick up Grace, where
Absolutely.
Grace Baptist Church is, and kind of the other side of Big Rocks Park.
Right, yeah.
So it just comes straight down Bernard, again, one property deep.
Yeah.
144 up and around.
Absolutely.
And these aren't, like, there's not a limited amount of overlay districts
No.
we can create, right?
No, there's not. Eventually, we will have the entire town in some sort of an overlay, but these are just
Right.
our starting
You
points.
Put an overlay within an overlay.
So yes, you can put a historic overlay within a different overlay, but I don't see a point of having an overlay within a smaller overlay unless there's,
Like you can have a hospital district within,
the downtown,
Within-
yeah, within the 67 district, but it's not quite like us saying, hey, I want to put, so as we're defining these things, here where we put this downtown district, I don't see us putting in another overlay within that. We have the historic overlay, but there really wouldn't be a need for another overlay in this area. We're coming along 67 because we're only talking about going one property deep on either side. I don't see, I mean, you've got the hospital district, which will fall within it, but that's not an overlay, that's a district. The only place where I can see us doing an overlay and an overlay is maybe around some of the neighborhoods where the schools are located. But I think we just build our boundaries better so that you've got an overlay that kind of surrounds the school. And we won't necessarily put the school in an overlay.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay, So-
Rain, there'll be water in the creek.
so we're coming
All
down
my own.
here. Okay, and then we're coming up.
That's why I brought my husband's truck.
So we're taking the 67 all the way down to the 7-Eleven? Or are we taking
Yeah.
67 to Dollar General? 7-Eleven or Dollar General?
Take 7-Eleven.
Taking 7-Eleven, okay.
Dollar General. You mean the Dollar General?
Dollar Tree, sorry.
Dollar Tree, yeah. that's
You
good.
might,
So,
you know, that property out there past the golf course is city. You might go all the way to there.
Ah,
Squaw Valley Meadows.
That is. You want to put that in the 67 district or do we want to put that in something
I
else?
mean, it's all gonna be commercial. on
So
across
picking
the
up-
golf course at some
Pi-
point.
Picking up McDonald's and all of that that's already been annexed in. I'm not allowed to put an overlay in a ETJ. I did already check that.
Well, they have commercial,
So we have,
ATJ meaning it's in the city but not developed yet?
no, ETJ meaning the
It's outside the
extended
city.
taxing jurisdiction.
Well,
that's
there's
not
commercial-
annexed.
There's 8 acres of commercial on 67 on that residential belt. We platted it that way.
You're right, there is. I remember that conversation now. Okay. So where this,
That way.
so when you go down
Other side of the golf course?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
far, yeah, past golf course.
okay.
In that development, there is that acreage in the
where-
front for
where
commercial.
Pollock Water Wells and
That's it.
Aston.
Okay.
Okay,
Oh,
okay, so we want to grab that into this.
I would-
Okay,
And I was talking to a guy today that wants to develop on the corner of 144 and 67 there, opposite side of, right there by the golf course.
on that corner, yeah,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that the
okay,
gas-
so we'll grab
is that
all
the gas
that.
station
Okay,
guy?
okay, so that's gonna be the grab, that's the territory that we're
Different
taking.
guy.
Different.
Anything beyond that, that you guys want to put into place right now, other than, hey, we're creating this overlay and we're gonna come back with what that regulations look like later.
so what were the regulations for that?
I don't have any yet.
Okay, okay.
I have none. This
But
was
it was
the.
all those extra ones, like we could look through.
Yeah,
everybody.
that was me saying, okay, what do we want it to look like?
Because
I'm
this
not throwing that out.
overlay is zoned all different types of zones, or is it just a B2? Is it B1, B2? Like
It's
It's a mix.
all
it's
over the
all different
place.
types.
Right.
R1s, B1s, B2s.
Because the
Or
ones we've been
twos.
looking at really haven't been, so this one's such broad, it's
Right.
broader, okay. Okay, but there's no regulations yet, because then you're getting real
Because-
specific, right?
Right, and I didn't
Okay.
want to have that conversation until we figured out what was the,
Okay.
what was the zone that we were looking at, and then what do we want to see?
She's giving you
So-
pick and choose.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
what I was, okay.
Yeah, that's the,
That's all that.
I don't know what the hell we want, so let me give you what every other town is doing, and then we can kind of say, we like that idea, but we don't like that idea. Oh, let me go
Welcome to
look at
P&Z,
this.
yeah.
So in other words,
This
look
is
through
where-
that and bring
This
back
is where
numbers.
Rex,
Excellent.
in his hat as sustainable and kind of looking at, city growth and development from his change
I know.
management and construction background. And Greg down here in his site, locationing things and Dirt Digger over here.
I'm the sandbox kid.
I looked at this and I said, I have no idea. So I'm throwing this out there for us to have some
Okay,
very preliminary ideas. And so all we're going to do at this point is define a parameter. And then we're going to come back and then start adding some basic regulations to it after we all spend some time doing our own research, coming up with our own ideas, etc. Do I have a motion to create the parameter of this district?
Sure. Yep,
Second.
absolutely.
Okay. All in favor? Okay. What the district's gonna end up looking like and what all the rules and regulations of it are, not a clue. But we at least know what we're working with, so we know what we want that particular area to do. Okay, final agenda topic. Because of things that have gone on in town, with a variety of stuff, there is a few schedule of use changes that we need to address. So, brew pubs, so I'll start on we're on page 61.
Hey,
Brew
can you
pub.
give me the definition of a brew pub versus a microbrewery? Does a brew pub have to serve food? It does according to Cleburne. I was just wondering. Like, if I look at other towns, it's very specific and ours is not. But then it also reads as a micro, so I wasn't sure. Because I think we should
We
be,
did that like 2 years ago.
I know, I think you should be very specific on the definition because they're the same ultimately, if not.
Okay, so I can't, I mean, I can look at if I have a
mean,
definition
There is the
in our
definition
document,
in our document.
but you're saying it's not necessarily clear enough.
It's not, they're too
Okay.
much the same.
Okay.
Isn't that defined under
I think so.
TABC?
Well, that's what I pulled.
TABC does not define a brew pub at all.
Okay,
I thought they did.
okay, off topic.
No, yeah.
Off topic, I can't talk about definitions, but what I will do is I will add that to our next agenda topic so that we can discuss and define what that should look like.
Okay, I was just
Okay.
because I was worried about
No, I
the
got you.
subs and different things.
Yeah, I,
Brew pub didn't manufacture beer in a microbrewery. It's like you had like an ale house that had 100 beers, but they didn't make any of them. I
That's-
think that's a brew pub. A microbrewery would make their own.
I mean, I
I think,
and what
did not define it that way. I always thought a brew pub made their own beer
and surf food.
and
that's a
served food.
brewery.
No, and served food.
No.
So it's a tasting room and a food service, but they also manufacture their own beer. So, Soulfire in Cleburne, to me, was a brew pub. They have 6 tanks. Everything is in a historical building, right in a line of other
On the
buildings
square.
on the square.
And Cleburne defines it very well.
Okay.
They definitely make
Okay,
their.
so we can't,
No, I
unfortunately,
I've
unfortunately,
got the definitions here, so I'll send them.
I'm looking at it now
Yeah.
too.
okay. We will add that to our next meeting agenda to get that defined. In the meantime, it does make sense to, based on all of the discussions that have happened in the past, to turn brew pub or microbrew or whatever that is, into specific use permits required, unless you're in the industrial zone, and then you can do whatever you want.
You can do it.
Okay, is everybody okay with that change?
I thought it was already there.
No, in B2, so we removed it from B3 altogether. In B1 and B2, it was permitted without a specific use permit. So now we've taken it off B3 altogether, and we've said it's got to have a specific use permit.
I'm confused now.
There was an X
There
in
was
the
allowed.
box,
Yes.
which means it's allowed. In the schedule of use, it was allowed. So we're changing the X to an S.
So if someone got a specific use permit but didn't need to,
No, they had to get a distribution specific use permit to determine. I can't keep going down this road.
no, I know, no.
It's-
Well, I'm just so confused because I had already looked at it and I thought it looked different. So
Yes, so we're saying, so we originally had that a brew pub was allowed with an X in B1, B2, B3.
Okay.
We have removed it from B3, and we are saying specific use permit now in B1 and B2.
What is B3?
B3 is a square.
So you don't want one on the square?
We actually don't have room on the square for one.
Because there's no parking.
You only need 0.2. No.
There's no parking on requirement on the square, and this would require, we would want to have parking for this. Okay,
Supposed to be used as a brew pub.
All right, retail dealers off premise, we, because again, we now have 2 liquor stores in town. We have said it needs to be a specific use permit before another one can be put into town. And we did this recently with car wash as well, because now we have we have a nice newfangled car wash, and then we have some older generation car washes, but we felt that that was enough car washes in 4 square miles, so they're now specific use permits. The same with the wine and malt beverage dealer off premise only, meaning that you're buying it and you're taking it away from the store. It's a store. We're putting that as specific use permit. And then the same thing with a wine only store. It's now a specific use permit.
Now, the store that bought Debbie's,
I don't know what bought Debbie's.
oh, it was the liquor store next door,
Oh, Circle V bought Debbie's?
yeah. And they only gave them 30 days to vacate. Well, they bought the building
Okay,
and gave them 30 days, so I'm curious as to what
that's a
they were
separate plat.
what they were permitted to do, because I didn't see anything come through on that.
Nothing's been decided on that as of yet.
Okay. Does that come before us or not?
Well, it all kind of depends on what
They decide to do.
he decides to do, because it's that whole corner.
Oh, that whole.
So it's Debbie's and that old gas station. It's
Which
all
means
one
he's
piece
gonna
of
either,
Ah.
so dividing plat or the plat's already
Right.
joined
No, right now, Debbie's and the old gas station
is one plat.
is one plat.
Okay,
So nothing at this point has come to us.
Is
So
it the same
getting-
guy who owns that liquor store? Yeah.
okay, so getting the specific use permit means that if he was to do something else with that
Right.
related to alcohol, it would come to us.
Got it. Okay.
Unless he was doing an off and on premise.
Okay.
Meaning I can sell the wine and you can drink the wine in the same place.
You can't join it together and call it all Circle V.
He could expand
But it's a
His-
matter of how
how he
would
does
do
it.
That's what
Yeah.
that's what I wouldn't want him to do, is just automatically expand and then not need a special use permit.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what this
I know.
vote's for. Okay.
And real quick, what's B1?
Okay, so B1
I've
is
looked at them, I'm just forgot.
so B1 is restricted business. It typically, okay, I'm going to be honest with you. Because of years past, B1 and B2 kept getting confused by people.
Mhm.
B1 is technically restricted business, which would be more like right next to residential areas. But we don't really have that because people, before we went through the schedule of uses and cleaned it all up a year and a half, 2 years ago,
Yeah, that's 2 years.
most things that we would have thought should have been in a general business were allowed in a restricted business and general business. So it kind of, our B1 got overwhelmed.
Okay.
So we're trying to clean things
Can you
up.
give me an idea of a B1? I mean, I can go to the map too.
B1 is right here around all this commercial property right around the square is B1 until you get down to my property, which is B2. Don't ask. There is no logic to it
Okay.
because I'm just telling you, there is truly no logic to it because in years past, there wasn't necessarily following what should have made sense. People just kind of Wild Wested it. Okay? All right. On these 3 changes under the section on alcohol sales, do I have a motion to approve moving these things to SUPs? For the changes that I've got written here.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Are you, I'm sorry, did you raise your hand or not?
Yeah, I did. I'm just looking at it still a little bit.
This doesn't solve the thing you're looking for,
No, no,
but
no,
it's
I'm
helping
trying
us
to make-
prevent things moving forward.
I'm trying to think through the,
Okay.
Yeah.
In the educational and institutional section, which carries really over to 62, childcare center or facility, we are adding a note. We allow it in B1, B2, and in industrial, but we did not have in-house residents allowed. So we're adding the note that if you are running a childcare facility, you are allowed to live in the childcare facility, which is
That's
what
kind of a
is,
B1.
it kind
It's a
of is.
modified B1.
Yeah, so what we have is we have a note under all of our details of schedule of uses that 5 is allowing a person to reside in their business. And so we are making this modification.
because there's quite a few of those here in town.
So by state
Not
regulations,
just there.
there
I know this
is,
One of them.
it by state regulations, to run an in-home daycare, to be allowed to have more than like 3 or 4 children, you can go up to 12 children. Then you have to be in a commercial zone, but then you have to still reside in the property. And so for us to match our code
To the state.
to the state, we're making these suggested changes.
Okay,
Okay?
I understand.
So that is the reason for the change in childcare center or facility to add the note 5 that allows an in-business residence. That is also the reason on page 12 where it says childcare home. Again, in B1 and B2, we've added SUP and the note for 5.
So any person, so like R1 has to come and get a sub to say, hey, I just want to start keeping kids
Now,
in my
if
house.
you're in R1,
Mhm.
you are limited by the state on how many people how many children you can have.
Right, so then why do they need a specific use permit?
We put it, so we've always had the childcare facility in
Mhm.
specific use permit. We were just adding it to B1 and B2,
Okay.
depending on your definition of childcare facility.
Right.
So we were so childcare facility traditionally is more like Little Tigers
No, yeah.
and Endless Discovery. And childcare in home in a residential home, we had never had it allowed in B1 and B2. But in order to comply with the situations that the state has, we are adding it to B1 and B2. Anybody that's already in existence is grandfathered in.
So it was already an S there?
No, it was never allowed. An in-home was not allowed in a B1 or B2.
Well, I mean, that's what you're saying, you're putting S's across the board. But I see what you're saying, the B1 and B2, so, but
It was never allowed in B1 and B2. But because of the situations, we have found that we have some people running them because the state requires them to, if they go up to 12 children,
Yeah.
they have to be zoned commercial.
So here's what I'm trying to say, everybody right now that has an income daycare has come up and gotten a step.
No, because this is anybody that's in an in-home daycare that does not. Let me think about how do I say this.
Cause I don't,
There hasn't been anybody since I've been here.
Yeah.
In-home daycare.
I've never known anyone to think, oh, they're doing special.
But I don't think I added.
I just don't know why it wouldn't be an X.
It was an S already. I added it allowing in B1 and B2 with a note 5. That's all I changed. So
Yeah.
can we look up what the original schedule of use is there to make sure that I haven't doctored something I wasn't supposed to doctor?
Well, yeah, we wouldn't even, I'm just trying to think, so you had a residence, right, it would never be in a B1 or B2, right, it'd be in an R or something.
But it still's requiring a sub, so I don't know why it would. If that's the case, there's a lot of people that need to come up.
No, because they're all grandfathered in.
No, they're not if you're saying that was always an S.
Well, when we changed the S, which we would have done, if we changed it to S, is, okay, what are you pulling up?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Sorry,
Okay.
I'm not trying, I'm just,
No, you're fine. And again, I have said, look, this whole, the way that,
well,
we-
here's, because we've got childcare center and then we've also got daycare commercial. What's the difference?
daycare commercial is Little Tiger.
What's childcare center?
I don't know.
I'm hung up on definitions. I'm just saying if it's what it is, if it's what the city
It was
has
something,
defined it
it was
as,
something
you know.
that was already there and we just kept it. Hang on. Oh, code of ordinances.
Come on, computer.
So it's it's a childcare center and a daycare center, are those the two?
Yeah,
But no, then we're, because it's not, right now, it's not in here. Childcare in-home isn't in here. There's no X's or S's.
there we go, hang on.
I'm gonna have water in the creek and the river.
They have daycare commercial
Right, so I'm looking at
that
that.
had an X for B1, B2,
Correct.
and I.
And that's because
So-
that isn't required by the state to have in-home residency.
So
Oh, I found it.
child,
Childcare, daycare, it's under residential and not educational.
so according to this definition, childcare is more of a structured educational environment. And daycare is more of a
Babysitting service.
babysitting service. So that's what they're making the difference.
So yeah, it has S's, but when did that,
So that would have been when we made the scheduled use changes, which was in Greg 23?
Yeah.
Yeah.
22, 23.
That's probably from
I'm
23.
just trying to figure out why they would need a sub.
Um,
What's the purpose of that? Because to me, that should be an X, definitely for at least the residential's. I mean,
because you're talking about an in-home business.
Yeah, it is a business in a residential area.
Because then you have, we did it so that we can make sure that the housing was safe. But remember, from that standpoint, they're not up to 12, they're just 3 or 4 people. So from what I understand, and I will go back and re-research all of this, if you are taking care of up to between 5 and 12 children, then you are a different license than if you are just taking care of a couple of neighborhoods.
right,
So,
And so,
lots of state standards for it too, not
Right.
even on, I'm not talking about us, but.
yeah,
so according to this here, the reason a special use permit for a daycare or childcare in a residential area is because there's increased traffic, parking, health and safety, noise, operating hours, and then zoning regulations.
Got it, okay.
so we did it, but we didn't allow that in a B1, B2 because that was for residences, R1s.
Right.
But because we have learned
That if they changed all that to commercial, and it was originally a residential,
so we have to fix our ordinance to
that we
help
matched
them.
what we did.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
gotcha.
Okay. All right. Does those changes for the childcare facilities, do I have a motion for those?
How much?
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
I'll send this stuff to you.
Okay. So I will probably need to relook at some of our definitions to help clean those up, and we'll put those we'll work those into agendas moving forward.
Honestly, that's been my personal most confusing thing, was
Okay.
the definitions not being very clear.
Yeah, no, we're in, and
That's open,
Well, remember, this is.
You what?
so that's open, like,
thank you. All right,
Who's Joe? That's Joe's
it was Joe's fault.
fault.
It's probably Dennis Moore's fault, really. Let's just go on further. Okay, with all that said, I have no further discussion before the commission. This meeting is adjourned at 7:40.
So we had a spectator and we had a guy with blueprints who came and left.
Oh, those are my blueprints.
Oh,
I dropped
those are
off
yours?
earlier this week.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was wondering if we were missing somebody's.
And our spectator is our reporter for the
Oh.
newspaper.